There's Stella.
She's so cute. Does she have a dinosaur shirt
I can't. Say hi.
Hey guys! How's it going? Good to see everyone.
Tucker.
There's Tucker, man, Stella. That's Caroline Cash right there in Texas. Hey guys, it's good to see everyone. So remember, as always, we always mute it because there's so many of you guys, but you can hear me. So if you guys can hear me okay, give me a thumbs up. If you guys can hear me, go like that. Yeah? I see lots of thumbs. It sounds like we're good to go. Well, you guys, I'm so happy, you guys. And there's Colette in New York. All right, you guys, this is going to be really cool. For those of you who are just joining us, welcome. My name is Mr. Billy. I'm Billy the paleontologist, and I run Fossil Posse Adventures. For all you guys who are returning, I see so many familiar faces, so welcome back. You guys are going to be really excited about today's show because it's really cool. We're going to get to it in just a second. A couple things I just want to let you all know. Remember, especially for you guys just joining us, you can get on fossilposse.com and check out a lot of the stuff that we do here at Fossil Posse. We teach all about dinosaurs, and we run a terrific kids camp here in the summertime in Colorado. So if you guys ever come out, we dig up fossils and learn all kinds of cool stuff. So make sure you come and check that out. Also, we started a dinosaur museum. That's right. We have a museum here in our little town in Colorado, and we want it to grow. So if anyone wants to help us do that, there is a button on our website at fossilposse.com that you can donate. Any amount will help us get more fossil stuff, get more cool dinosaur stuff, and make the museum better and better and better. Also, I want to remind you guys that I'm going to be doing that cool TV show coming up called Fossil Quest. You'll be able to see that on YouTube. I'll probably also post it on Facebook. And you guys go with me out to hunt dinosaurs and fossils. It's going to be really cool. And as we get going, I got one more thing I got to say to my friend Gabe, who's out there somewhere. He's in Maine. My friend Gabe sent me this awesome drawing. And Gabe, I hope you don't mind me showing this because I love this drawing. This is an Allosaurus and a Stegosaurus. And I don't know what's about to happen, but it couldn't be good because those were two big dinosaurs that didn't like hanging out. And this is fantastic, Gabe. So thank you so much. You guys feel free to send me drawings. I love getting your drawings, and this is a terrific one from my friend Gabe in Maine. So thanks again, Gabe. All right, today's show. You know them, you love them. Some people hate them. They're the hero sometimes, but usually they're the villain. And we're talking about raptors, right? Raptor dinosaurs. Very misunderstood sometimes, lots of myths, but we're going to talk about the myths versus reality or the truth about what raptors were like. Now, a lot of you guys who have probably seen the Jurassic Park movies or the Jurassic World movies, you know the raptor from the Velociraptor Blue and his buddies. Those were raptor dinosaurs. A lot of people look at them as being one of the most famous dinosaurs now, probably right behind T-Rex because of the movies. And a lot of people would just refer to them as raptors. The truth is they're from a family of dinosaurs called Dromaeosaurs. Dromaeosaurs and raptors, kind of the same word. They describe the same type of dinosaurs. And what they were, let me move this. This is a raptor skull. You can see how this skull is a little bit different than like an Allosaurus skull or even a Tyrannosaurus Rex skull right here. Raptor skulls were longer and thinner, and they had really sharp teeth in there, so their skulls were shaped a little bit different. But one of the other unusual things about raptors is they were covered in feathers. They had feathers all over them. We're going to talk more about that in a second. But one of the things about raptors that gets confusing is the myth of how big they were, right? And that gets really confusing when you watch the movies because the velociraptors in the Jurassic Park movies, they make them really big. They're probably like 15 feet long in the Jurassic Park movies. Or in real life, velociraptors were pretty small. They were about 5 feet long and about this tall at the hips, and they were kind of like a big mean turkey, really, in real life. So you always got to be careful when you see movies or something that depicts something like a raptor because you want to read books to know exactly what they're talking about. So sometimes they make them a little bit different than they were in real life. So velociraptors weren't giant like in the movies. They were actually kind of small. But they were all sizes. Raptors in general, or dromaeosaurs, some of them, believe it or not, were as small as this toy. In real life, they were only this big, and some of them even smaller than this. In fact, just recently, they discovered a little skull from a little raptor dinosaur that actually was probably half the size of this head on this toy, which possibly makes it the smallest dinosaur ever found. And they're still studying that to figure it out. But raptors could be this small, or raptors could be 15 feet long and have a head this big and eat us no problem. They were all shapes and sizes, some of them small, some of them big. Another myth about raptors, as we kind of mentioned before, is were they all kind of like lizard looking? Were they scaly, like this toy right here, where they look like just smooth or scaly type lizard skin? Or did they have the feathers all over them like this toy here? It's got feathers on his tail, feathers on his arms, feathers on his head, all over his body. And in fact, when we see some pictures of raptors, here's one right here. You've probably seen a picture like this. It looks like a bird. That top raptor right here actually has 4 wings. He's got 2 arm wings and 2 leg wings. And here's that velociraptor. See, it has feathers all over it. And how do we know that raptors had feathers, that most of them had feathers? Well, as you guys know, I like to say all the time, is fossils never lie, right? And we find fossils like this one right here. This is an exact copy of a real fossil. The real one's in a museum in the country of Germany because it's really rare and really special. But this is an exact copy. And if you notice, you can see the skeleton all here. Here's his backbone, here's his head. But then he's got these big wispy things here. These are fossilized feathers. Believe it or not, these are fossilized feathers. And that's what tells us that these guys had fossils on their body and they weren't covered with scaly lizard-like skin. But instead, they were really pretty. And probably a lot of them looked like a lot of birds of today, probably really colorful for whatever reasons, all kinds of fluffy feathers and big, big, beautiful bodies. They would have been really cool. So that's another myth about raptors, is that they were kind of lizard-like, when in actuality, they were really fancy and colorful and a lot like birds. Now, another thing about raptors, well, actually, I'm going to save this last myth for later, because I think a lot of you guys know it. But we're going to talk about it in a second, because I got some cool raptors to show you, and also some really cool fossils, and including a whole arm from a raptor you guys are going to see. It's got 3 fingers and it's got claws on it. We're going to get to that in a little bit. As I mentioned, though, raptors come in all shapes and sizes. And here's a little teeny raptor right here. One of the other things that make them really popular is look on his foot. Can you see that? I'm going to put it right in front of my face. Look at that big claw sticking straight up. He has one on this foot too. Raptors had huge claws on their feet for grabbing at things. And the word raptor actually means thief or robber. So when you have different names like a velociraptor, that means fast robber. He was quick running. He was a really quick dinosaur to run around. Or we have oviraptor. An oviraptor actually is kind of mislabeled. Oviraptor means egg thief. And when they first found oviraptors, here's a really cool toy. You can see this one here. This is a toy that's modeled after a real fossil that was found. And it was one of the most spectacular raptor fossils ever found. And what it was a mommy oviraptor right here. It's got his wings spread out, and she's sitting on a clutch of eggs. These are all raptor eggs. And in fact, here is a oviraptor fossilized egg right here. That's about how big they are in real life. That's a dinosaur egg. That's how big it is. So in this toy, she's sitting on top of her nest and she's covering it with her wings and she's protecting it. And when they found this fossil in real life, it was big. That raptor was about this big and it was all laying on top of its eggs. And scientists think what it was doing is it was protecting its nest from a big sandstorm that ended up burying it. And unfortunately, it killed the mom and it killed all the eggs, but they fossilized. And we got to see them millions of years later exactly like they were. So remember, I always say fossils never lie. Not only did we find some cool fossils, but that fossil taught us that mommy oviraptors protected their eggs. They protected their nests from things that might happen to them. So that's a really special fossil. So oviraptor, we have Utah raptor. And that's a dinosaur, a raptor that was discovered in the state of Utah. And just like the name translates, it's a Utah robber. So the word raptor means thief or robber is what that is. But they had those giant claws. And if you guys remember, in the last show, we talked about the horned dinosaurs like Triceratops. And remember, they had that big chunk of bone on their skull. And then that big thing went over top. It was like the keratin that our fingernails are made from. So the horn that we see in a fossilized Triceratops head was actually much bigger, right? Well, I'm going to show you a really good example of that right here. So this right here is a real raptor claw. I'll put it right in front of my face. That's a real raptor claw right there. You can see how big it is. And here is that piece of keratin I always talk about, like your fingernails are made out of. And if I put these two together, that claw goes right inside there, and you get an idea how big a claw might have been on a raptor. So look at the size and look how sharp that claw is. So in real life, that bone of a fossilized claw was really about that big, and that's pretty awesome. So that's going to give you an idea how that goes. Here's another one. This is a claw from a Utah raptor. Look how much bigger that one is. If we put this little one here, and then look at the size of that one. So with that little sheath on it, this claw would have been really long, really sharp, and really scary for sure. And here's another cool fossil from a raptor. This is a little arm bone. This is called a humerus, kind of like the word humor, ha ha ha. The humerus is this bone right here. You guys have it in your arm. It's between your shoulder and your elbow. It's that bone. And this is a little humerus bone from a little raptor. That's a real dinosaur bone. Look how tiny that is compared to my arm. He would have been a little guy. But you know what? Another thing about raptors, even though they might have been small, they would have been really fierce. They would have been scary. They probably traveled in groups, kind of like some birds. So even though they weren't giant, you probably had to be a little bit careful of them because they had a lot of teeth, sharp teeth, and they wanted to come after you. And they had those giant claws too. So that's something else you want to remember about raptors. So the other thing I want to show you guys, which I've been talking about for quite a while, and you might have seen it in the Facebook post, is the arm, right? The raptor arm. Well, believe it or not, some of you might have noticed right over here, there's a little finger on the side of the screen. I don't know if any of you guys picked up on that, but if I pull this over here, here is a real raptor arm. Look at that. That's the whole arm. You can see here's his humerus bone. That's this one right here. And then he's got two bones right here. That's his forearm right here. And then if I turn it a little bit, there's his three fingers, just like that. And remember, see, those are all claws right there. And remember, again, if we took this little piece here that I showed you before, and if we put that right on there, look how big one of those claws was in real life. So imagine each one of these fingers having a giant claw like that. It would have been really, really kind of a dangerous animal. If I pick it up, there it is right there. That's a real raptor arm. I'm going to take this off so it doesn't fall. Now I'll hold it up close so you guys can see it. There's the real bones to a little raptor dinosaur. There's his three fingers right there. And there's his arm. And believe it or not, this little fossil is about 70 million years old. That's about as old as the Rocky Mountains right there. So there's a few things about raptors. I hope that answers a few things. Right now, we're going to take some questions from you guys because I see a lot of faces out there going, So let's go ahead and take some questions. Lily, what do you got?
Well, Oliver wants to know when Fossil Quest is going to start.
Oliver, my man Oliver. Fossil Quest is probably going to start airing in June. I got to finish shooting it all and editing it all together, but it'll probably start in June. So keep an eye out for it. But believe me, especially all you guys on the show right now that are joining us, you guys will all know for sure when the first episode airs. So thanks for asking, Oliver. It's definitely probably around June 1st. You'll see the first one.
Stella would like to know, do we have Utah Raptors in Colorado?
Stella, you always have the best questions. Her question was, do we have Utah Raptors in Colorado? And the answer is probably yes. And I'll tell you why. The reason it's called Utah Raptor is because the first one was discovered in the state of Utah. But it's just because you remember when the dinosaurs were around, there weren't any states yet. There wasn't a Utah, there wasn't a California, there wasn't a Colorado, because there wasn't any United States when the dinosaurs were around. So even though it was discovered in Utah, it probably roamed all over the land, which now makes up Colorado, Utah, North Dakota, South Dakota, Texas, Montana, Wyoming, all those states. So there probably was Utah raptors in most of those areas. Same with another raptor called Dakota raptor. He was found in South Dakota, the state of South Dakota. So that's why they call it Dakota, but it probably lived all over the place. So that's a terrific question, Stella. Yeah, Utah raptor. And he would have been a scary one. Utah raptor was probably one of the bigger ones, so he would have made me really, really nervous, for sure. All right, what else you got?
The Brown family in Texas want to know, why did raptors have feathers?
Aha, great question. All right, my guys and gal, Carson, Cooper, Cash, and Caroline in Texas want to know why they had feathers?
Yeah,
Why do raptors have feathers? Well, you know what, that's a terrific question also. They probably very first evolved, meaning the first animals to have feathers weren't to fly. Nope. In fact, the first feathers that came about were probably to help some animals keep a little bit warm, because the climate was changing. Remember, over millions of years, the earth can get hot and the earth can get cold. So in areas where it might have been getting cooler, dinosaurs evolved these feathers to keep them kind of warm, kind of like having a jacket on. But then Mother Nature took it even further, and those feathers started getting more colorful. So pretty soon it went from something to keep them warm to something to distinguish them from other dinosaurs. And even further than that, it made them so they could show off or act tough by the colors, or try to attract a friend or a mate by being the most beautiful. So feathers started out as a protection. They evolved into showing off and display, like a lot of birds nowadays, right, of all different colors. And then eventually the coolest side effect of feathers was flying. At first, that wasn't part of the plan. Probably small dinosaurs could probably hike up into a tree, climb up into a tree, and jump out and just glide to the ground like a glider. They couldn't take off from the ground and just take off like a bird can today. That's something that came way later on. So, but initially they could jump out of a tree and glide to the ground. So really flying was kind of a side effect of feathers, which is really amazing, because that's all we think of now. We think feathers, you think flying. Although initially that was not it. So there's the answer to your question. For protection at first, to show off and be very displayful and colorful and beautiful. And then finally it developed into being able to fly. So great question, guys, the Texas gang. Good one. All right, next one.
Colette in New York would like to know, do dinosaurs have ears?
Ooh, good one. Colette, my friend Colette in New York asks, do dinosaurs have ears? And the answer is yes, they absolutely do have ears. Same with reptiles of today. Snakes, believe it or not, have ears. Lizards have ears. Turtles have ears. Crocodiles, alligators, all have ears. And if I grab this T-Rex skull right here, this baby, this was like a 4-year-old T-Rex, if you can remember that. I'm going to put this arm right here because I don't want to knock that over. All right, so here's T-Rex at about the age of 4 years old. Look how big that guy is at 4 years old. If you see this part here, this is for the nose, this is the nostrils, right? For breathing right there. This big hole, believe it or not, a lot of dinosaurs had this hole in their skulls, and that did nothing except for make their head a little bit more lightweight, because they didn't want to have too heavy a head to carry around and the neck would get tired, right? So these little holes made it lighter and easier to hold up on their necks. Here's where T-Rex's eyeballs would have been, right there. T-Rex's eyes would have been right here, like kind of like an eagle. And then right here, back in this area, this is where his ear was. If I hold it up a little bit closer, that hole right there would have had a little opening that went all the way inside his skull, just like our ears. And so they did have ears. That's a great question. Most animals have some kind of ear, whether it's an opening like ours, or whether it's a really thin piece of skin to pick up vibrations. Most animals do have ears. That's a terrific question, Colette. Yes, dinosaurs had ears for sure. Next question.
How big is the largest raptor?
The largest raptor? Well, that's a terrific question. I would say Utah raptor is one of the biggest, although they just recently discovered one they called Mega Raptor, and that tells you something. That was pretty big as well. So the biggest raptors probably got about 15 feet long, and as of right now, and probably weigh close to 300 or 500 pounds. That's the biggest ones, and that's a big animal. I mean, considering T-Rex got to be 20,000 pounds, it's not as big as T-Rex, but still, it's a dangerous animal. A big raptor would be kind of like a mean shark that could chase you on the land. Yikes! So yeah, but here's the other cool thing about science. Who knows what else is out there, right? They might have just discovered this new one, Megaraptor, but there could be other things out there. I told you they just discovered recently what could be the smallest dinosaur that ever lived. So small that its head was smaller than a hummingbird's head. That's how tiny that little dinosaur is, probably about this big. That's amazing to think of a dinosaur only being this big, but they were all shapes and sizes. Yeah, okay.
Dylan and Logan want to know some other raptor names.
Dylan and Logan wants to know some other raptors. Great question. Well, we went through Oviraptor, Utah Raptor, Dakota Raptor, Velociraptor. There's Eoraptor or Eoraptor. There's Microraptor, which were both, those guys were pretty small. And there is, oh, well, remember I said raptors and dromaeosaurs are kind of the same thing? Well, there's one called Dromaeosaurus. Dromaeosaurus was another kind of raptor who probably got pretty good size as well. Not as big as the other ones, but still big enough that I'd be running for it if I saw them. So there's a few more, but the list goes on and on. There's lots of different kinds of raptors. They basically describe the family of two-footed or theropod. Remember, theropod means dinosaurs that walked on 2 feet. They describe theropod dinosaurs with feathers. Pretty much almost everything that has those two things is some kind of a raptor or some kind of a dromaeosaur. But I can guarantee Dylan and Logan that there's a lot more raptors that have yet to be discovered because they're finding new ones all the time. So that list is growing and growing and growing all the time. Yeah, great question.
Do baby dinos have feathers?
Do baby dinosaurs have feathers? Another terrific one. You know, remember, because we don't have a lot of fossils from babies. Babies are one of those things that are weird because they're so small and so delicate. Sometimes they just don't fossilize. But they have found a few, and they think that they did have feathers. And they might have been, if you've ever seen a picture of well, you've probably seen baby birds, right? When baby birds are hatched out of the egg, when they dry off, or a baby chicken, a little chick, they're all fuzzy, right? They have the fuzzy, soft hair all over them. They probably had that. Dinosaurs probably had that. And then some of those would probably start growing feathers, and maybe other ones, that other dinosaurs, that fuzz probably went away. Like a baby T-Rex likely had fuzz on it, but T-Rex didn't have big feathers when it was a full-size mommy or daddy. As of right now, they haven't discovered that. So a great question. As babies, they probably had the fuzz on them, like a baby chicken or a baby bird, and that fuzz would turn in, that fuzz would disappear, and then feathers would start sprouting out if it's a feathered dinosaur. So a great question right there. All right, next one.
Have you ever dug up a raptor?
Have I ever dug up a raptor? I haven't dug up a raptor yet, but I have found fossils from raptors. Yes, I have found claws from raptors. I found teeth. And remember, we took a look the other day, but here's a whole group of teeth from different raptors. Different size raptors. These ones are kind of bigger. These would be like Utah Raptor, Dakota Raptor. And then some of these, look how tiny these little teeny teeth are. They're little tiny steak knife teeth. So we find a lot of teeth when we're out hunting dinosaurs because remember, if you remember before we talked about it, that their teeth fall out all the time and regrow. So I have found teeth, I've found claws, and I've found parts of bones, but I've never dug up a raptor like a whole body or a skull. So that's a great question. I hope to find one day. Oh, and I've also found raptor footprints. There's some right down the road from where we're sitting. Yeah.
Why did T-Rex have such a large mouth?
Why did T-Rex have such a large mouth? Great question. If you remember, I said T-Rex was about 20,000 pounds. Just T-Rex's head weighed 2,000 pounds when it was alive. Just his head. His mouth, a full-grown T-Rex, her mouth was so big she could take a bite of food that weighed about 300 pounds. And the reason her mouth was so big is because she ate big stuff, right? Big animals have big mouths. So that's part of how that goes. And part of it is because T-Rex had gigantic teeth, and you have to have a big mouth to get those big teeth in there, right? If your mouth's too small, you can't close your mouth because your teeth are too big. So they had a big mouth, because they could take big bites of food and swallow all kinds of big things. There's a lot of reptiles, even today, reptiles. Look at pythons or crocodiles, some of the real big reptiles. They eat large meals. A python will eat an entire deer or a goat. It might not eat for another 6 months, but it'll eat as much as it can at once because it doesn't know where its next meal is going to be coming from. So that's what's called an opportunistic feeder. If there's food in front of you, you eat because you're not sure where your next meal is coming from. So that's a great question about T-Rex. All right, go ahead, next one.
What was the fastest raptor?
The fastest raptor, that's a tough question. Like I can tell you, the word velociraptor means quick robber, which means velociraptors were probably pretty fast. Now, I would wager to guess that some of the smaller ones probably could run faster. I mean, think about a chipmunk or a squirrel, how quickly they can run across your yard real quickly. As opposed to bigger animals, they can get going fast, but it takes a little bit to get going. But raptors in general were all pretty quickly. I would say they were pretty fast, I would say in general, the bigger the raptor, the slower it was, but that's not to say it was slow. I think even a Utah raptor could probably run quick, like an ostrich or something like that, pretty fast, because they were lean, mean fighting machines. So they probably could run pretty quick. I would say all raptors, but it's hard to guess. It's hard to pick one particular one, which was the faster, but it definitely was a raptor of some sort as the fastest dinosaur. Yeah.
Do we have any proof that T-Rex could only see you when you move, like in Jurassic Park?
That's a great question. Who asked that one? Is there a name there?
I think Nicole's the mom.
Nicole's your mom? The question was, like in the Jurassic World, Jurassic Park movies, could T-Rex really only see you if you're moving? They say that T-Rex's eyes, if you were perfectly still and just sat perfectly still, that T-Rex probably couldn't see you. But if you were moving, it could lock onto you and see you pretty quickly. I'm not sure the answer to that. As I've said before, I think I know a lot about dinosaurs and I love learning more, but I don't know everything. So that's a good question. I think the reason that idea came about is they compared T-Rex to like birds of prey today, like eagles. You ever heard the term they have eagle eyes? It means eagles can see stuff from really far away because of the movement. So it may have been from that, but I'm not 100% sure because obviously we have no T-Rex eyeballs. All we have is the skull and the hole where the eye was. They have guessed that T-Rex probably, since it had such big nostrils and big sinuses in its skull, that it relied a lot on smell. So maybe its eyes weren't so good. Maybe it was because it couldn't see things that weren't moving, that it couldn't see so great. So that's possible. It's definitely a possibility. Great question, though. You know what? I think you should go find a book and learn about that one. Maybe you can tell me because I'm not sure what the answer is to that. Yeah.
So Ollie has a dinosaur book, and he wants to show you some raptors. So maybe you guys could set up a time to.
Yeah, Oliver said he's got a cool dinosaur book with a bunch of raptors. Absolutely, we can get together after the show, or you can send me some pictures. I always love learning more, and as I tell you guys all the time, one of the greatest things about science is there's so much more to be discovered. And as I tell you guys, one of you guys could be the person that goes out and discovers something that's never been seen before. That's what makes science so exciting, is we don't know what's possible. Scientists say so far that they've probably discovered about 600 different dinosaurs. That's a lot of dinosaurs, but they think there's 600 more dinosaurs that haven't even been found yet. So there's so much more to be discovered. Yeah.
Tucker wants to know why raptors had short front arms.
My man Tucker. Why did raptors have relatively short front arms? Well, they were pretty short, a little bit spindly, but not as short as like T-Rexes, for example. One of the reasons I think that raptors definitely could grab stuff. They could hold on to things. Their arms were long enough to grab things, but they relied a lot on that big claw on their foot to hold an animal down, just like an eagle does today, or a hawk. If an eagle or a hawk catches a rabbit, they use those feet to hold it down. In fact, I want to show you guys a picture. We kind of talk about how raptors never really went extinct, right? Dinosaurs didn't go extinct. They're still around today. We just call them birds. And here's something to help to prove that point. If you guys are thinking, I don't know if they're still around, raptors are gone, but here's something to show you that raptors aren't really gone. Look at this picture. That's a person's hand next to a giant eagle's foot. That's an eagle that lives today. That's called a harpy eagle. Look at the size of those claws next to that person's hand. And now you think, oh, well, an eagle or a bird, how can it hold down an animal? Well, look at the size of that foot. That foot, if it was big enough prey, maybe even someone like me, maybe a little bit smaller than me, a foot that big on my neck would not be a good thing at all. So that shows you right there that dinosaurs are still alive. Look at the skin. The skin's like scaly and kind of reptile-like, and then it's got those giant claws. So there you go about that. You never know. There's just so much more to be found. So that's a good question, though. Next question.
Okay. Could a raptor kill a triceratops? That's from Walker.
Walker, my buddy Walker's got his own TV show too, and Walker, I got to see it, and I was really honored that you mentioned me in your show. So good luck with that. If there's anything you need me to help you with, I'd be happy to. But you're on your way to a really cool show. Walker knows an awful lot about dinosaurs, and that's a great question. Could a raptor take down a triceratops? Here's what I think about that. When people ask questions like that, we automatically think of a full-grown triceratops and a full-grown raptor. Well, if you look at things that happen in Africa, sometimes you see a cheetah or a leopard or a lion, and it's going after a young antelope or a baby antelope. So I think a raptor of the size of a Utah raptor could take down a juvenile triceratops. Absolutely, I think no problem. I think a full-grown triceratops would be pretty difficult to take down. Like lions could easily take down a baby elephant or a teenage elephant, right? But a lion against a full-grown elephant? No way. They're just too strong. So I think it depends on the situation, but I think at certain times, I think a raptor could take down a young triceratops or a baby, or maybe one that's injured, or a really, really old one, but not a full-grown, healthy triceratops. I think they're just simply too strong. But it's a great question. Those are the fun things to think about, that what these things were like when they were around. They're pretty cool. But you guys, we're running out of time right now. Do you have one more?
Yes, they want to know, Dylan and Logan want to know, where did you find the raptor footprint just down the road?
Dylan and Logan, they're right down the street. They're just west of Edwards in some rocks way up in a cliff. So maybe one day we can go check them out, but they're really cool. They're about this big. Each one's probably the size of my fingers, and they're walking across a rock. It's really neat, really neat. You guys, I can't thank you enough. Oh, we got one more. Okay.
Izzy, my call for me.
Uh-huh.
She wants to know if you have a favorite dinosaur.
Hi, Izzy. Actually, you know what? I do. And my friend Gabe, I showed you his picture at the beginning right here of a Jurassic scene of Allosaurus getting ready to attack a Stegosaurus. A beautifully drawn picture. Gabe, thanks again. These are my two favorite dinosaurs. Allosaurus, because it's the first one I ever found, and Stegosaurus, because I found some footprints, and I just think it's one of the neatest dinosaurs that ever lived. So, Izzy, thanks for your question. Allosaurus and Stegosaurus, and I think Gabe might have known that because he put my two favorite dinosaurs in one drawing. But you guys, thanks for joining in today. I hope you learned something about raptors, right? And remember, you can get on fossilposse.com, and you can message me any questions. You can send me drawings. I have a big collection of these, and I love them. But I think next Wednesday, if you guys tune in, we're going to talk about armored dinosaurs like Stegosaurus and Ankylosaurus with the big sledgehammer tail. And we're going to talk about armored dinosaurs and how they lived, how they died, and how they protected themselves and what they were really like. So fossilposse.com, tune in. You guys, thanks so much for joining us. Have a terrific day. Bye-bye.